Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, and welcome. Now, you may have noticed a change of name. Ask an Atheist has turned into FreeThought Hour. And I've done that because there's the other channel. There's more than one channel called Ask an Atheist. And I wanted to reduce the confusion. And my new project is FreeThought City. So I wanted to resonate with that. And that's probably got enough reasons for you, isn't it? Well, the other apology I have to make for you is that the guest I promised last week, Ty Wells, has had to pull out. And I use pull out advisedly because he's had to have a tooth pulled out, which is not a pleasant experience. Anyway, tonight we have another person from Kentucky. Hello.
Hello, hello.
Hello, Eric. Eric Green from Kentucky. How the devil are you?
I am well. Thanks for asking.
Good, good, good. Yeah, well, you're there in the Bible Belt and in the same radio hour show as Ty and other guys, some of whom I hope to get to come on my show in the near future. I think Dread might be willing.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll look forward to that. And also, you've got your own group, haven't you? Because the Digital FreeThought Radio Hour is based in Knoxville, but you're based in, where is it, Lexington?
Lexington, Kentucky. Yep.
Yep. Is that any nearer to the infamous Noah's Ark experience?
It is indeed. And Ty was in Kentucky for a while, and that's how I met him. And he and I actually drove up to the Ark for the annual protest of the Ark. It was something that a group up there does, and it was a real interesting opportunity to, Ty got to do his street epistemology, and I got to walk 2 by 2 to the Ark. So it was neat.
Did you meet Ken Ham, the man?
Did not. No. There was a drone flying overhead of us that I think maybe Ken was operating, keeping an eye on us.
Yes.
Hooligans.
The spy drone, or maybe he was at his other exhibition, the Genesis, the Creation Museum. Yeah. So anyway, enough rabbiting. Tell us about you, Eric. Have you traveled a journey like a lot of Americans have?
Well, assuming we're talking here about religion, I was born an atheist, just like everyone else on the planet.
Yes.
But my mom was Catholic, and I was raised Catholic, and even pretty seriously, we did the Sunday school and something on a Wednesday, and we were pretty involved. My mom was pretty involved. She comes from Canada, and I think that was a pretty big part of her growing up. My dad, on the other hand, didn't reveal anything to us kids, my brother, who's older, and my sister, who's younger, that he was an atheist until we were much older. And I think he did that on purpose as to not influence us. He didn't want to, just give it an influence on that side of things, which I think is interesting because I did the opposite with my kids. I let them know very early on that I'm an atheist, and I want them to choose for themselves, but I want them to have all the information. I didn't even know that atheism was an option when I was 10 years old. I mean, it didn't seem like I would have been a good person or the right thing to do or any of it. So yeah. But
so this is interesting because your mother, being Catholic, would have been sort of sworn to deliver Catholic children, wouldn't she?
Yeah, I think that's kind of built into the arrangement there, which has made it a successful religion, I suspect. Yeah.
And how was it that she married an atheist, or did he keep that secret at the time?
I've never asked him that. I think a big part of it is my mom really was just kind of going through the motions with religion. I mean, she wasn't a Bible reader, like bedside. Right. So I think it was just, this is just what we do. Right. So probably when she found out about my dad, it probably wasn't a deal breaker. He's a good looking guy. So
I can see where it comes from. Yeah, a friend of mine, he was raised quite staunchly Catholic, and he wanted to get together. Hang on, have I got this right? Yeah, he wanted to get together with a girl whose parents were quite staunchly some sort of Protestant, and that posed difficulties way back then. I mean, they must be coming up for about 40 years of marriage by now, but way back then it was. I'm in a country which is largely heathen, but there's a few pockets of people who do feel they want to continue in their religion, and stepping outside of it is a big no-no. So they had a problem, but I'm glad to hear you didn't.
No. Yeah. Well, my journey out of religion, I think, was largely a part of, my dad sharing that he was an atheist helped. It gave me kind of that option, like, oh, we can consider this, because I didn't say the GD. For, I don't know, our radio show, we can't really swear or anything. Are we safe here, or what's happening?
Well, it's going out in your part of the world, so it's up to you.
But I looked for a long time, as a young teenager, I was scared to death to use the Lord's name in vain. And then kind of when my dad, came out to us, so to speak, I started to get more and more comfortable with the idea. And then the band Bad Religion came on my radar, a punk band, probably was mid '90s. And I just started consuming their music and reading their lyrics, and the guitarist and the lead singer wrote these just fantastic lyrics with $5 words that you had to go look up, see what they meant. And it really helped. I loved the music. I loved the message. And it was like, finally someone was saying the things that I was thinking. It's just, they were so much more articulate at it. So that, and then it just a bunch of other pieces from there just kind of snowballed. And, by the time I was in college, I was,
out. And out.
Yep.
Mm.
Yeah.
Which we'll talk about music in a minute, because I know you're a keen musician. I see your bass guitar there, a Fender Jazz bass, one of the classics. And but it's quite brave being out in the Bible Belt, isn't it?
Yeah.
Have you found it a disadvantage? Have you been, I don't suppose you've been victimized, but has it affected you? Do you find that you're shunned in certain circles or anything?
I don't think so, because I think if I would have come out guns a-blazing as an atheist in the mid '90s, I think that it would have had some pretty adverse effects on career paths and maybe some friend and some relationships. So I think I notice now that I don't think it's as much of a deal breaker, so to speak, as it maybe it was 20 years ago. But I could see, I'm as I told you before the show started, I'm hesitant to post very atheistic things on my Facebook profile, just because my neighbor's mother is a friend of mine on Facebook, and I don't know, she sees that, and does she go, "Oh, poor Eric, I feel bad for him." I like people to like me, so I'm so I'm cautious with it, but it's something I'm shedding more and more. I'm getting more and more comfortable with talking about it. And,
because we talked earlier, and you are comfortable with the term atheist, which a lot of people in your situation might not be. You might go for the softer option of free thinker or agnostic.
Yeah.
So what do you think these words actually mean? Do you have any?
Well, that one's a very, very close topic for me. We can get into this a little bit more, but the group I host, usually here right behind me when we're not in lockdown, Summit. We now do it outside with social distancing, and now most of us are vaccinated, so it's but it's a group of folks that we come together to talk religion, politics, philosophy, science, and a lot of the conversations. Really, it's I don't invite just anybody, because if they're a religious person, they have to be pretty pretty comfortable with disagreement and
Yes.
conversation and that, and we do. We have great,
Challenge.
yeah. But one of the things we like to talk about, so that we're all dealing with the same definitions, is we use the Dawkins scale, the Richard Dawkins scale,
Yeah.
which you're probably familiar with, which to me really helps kind of explain the distinction between atheism and agnosticism. And it's something that I really frustrates me when someone's, I'm not really an atheist, more like an agnostic, and versus being religious. And I have to stop them. And I even have paper handouts on that shelf back there.
Yes. Yes.
Hey, autographed photo with Richard Dawkins, by the way, on that shelf.
Wow.
Just to mention. But I have this sheet of paper that shows, Gnosticism in one dimension, so
Yes.
horizontally, and it's
Yes.
about knowledge.
Yes.
And then theism in the other direction, which is about belief.
Yes.
So I ask people, do you believe in a God? Yes or no?
Yes.
Well, no, I don't believe in a God. Well, then you're an atheist. Do you know there is no God? No, I don't know that there's no God. Well, then you're agnostic, and you can be both. And you can be, So you can be on that spectrum, even, from 7. So
as Dawkins says, he's a 6.9. You can't be sure that there's no God.
In fact, I was a 7 when I started reading The God Delusion, and I was a 6.9 when I finished it.
Yes. Yes. You learn that being dogmatic is not necessarily a good idea.
No.
Yeah. Well, my story is a bit different from yours, because I was raised in what was at that time pretty much a heathen country, the UK, and my parents, I chose them carefully. They weren't religious. And of course, like you, like the whole of the world, I was born an atheist, and I pretty much kept it. I wasn't forced to attend any church. The only time we went to church was to attend a wedding. I wasn't taken to the funerals. I was too young, And the only time I met religion was in school, where even to this day, believe it or not, the law says that a state school has to have a communal worship daily. And of course, at that time, the main religion was C of E, Anglicanism, Church of England. So I got exposed to that. I had to attend the assembly where a reading happened. We sang a hymn, and then we said the Lord's Prayer. But of course, as children, it didn't really have an appeal. We were past the I've got to do what my parents tell me stage, and we were at school, and in that situation, you've got more of a to and fro. It's interactive. You can talk to your teachers, and you can actually disagree with them, and you don't have to do what they say. You can be a naughty boy. So, and then the next thing that happened was I got sucked into science, and that was, that turned into my love. And I am now a retired science teacher. So, and of course, one of the first things you learn when you're teaching is not to alienate the audience. You don't want to walk into a class and turn them all against you. That's not a good idea. So for that reason, I've never called myself an atheist, because I find to some people it's offensive. They have this peculiar idea that an atheist is someone who is immoral, purposeless, and a God hater. All of those things are ridiculous, but nevertheless, that's how some people view atheists. So I didn't want to stimulate that reaction. So I've always called myself a non-believer, which may be a cop-out, but that's my justification.
You're right. It kind of has a connotation, and I think that is changing too. I think, now you've got, you had the new atheists with, Sam Harris and Dawkins and Dennett and Hitch, and you had those, 10 years ago were hitting YouTube, in a big way, and then you've got Penn and Teller, you've got a lot of fame. Actually, if you've ever gone through a list of celebrities that are atheists, it's just A
They're
warming
all
sensation.
they're
Yeah,
all atheists.
a lot of them are. Yeah.
It's very hard to find a religious entertainer.
Yeah.
I mean, apart from what's his name, the Scientologist,
Tom Cruise.
Tom Cruise. Apart from him,
Yeah.
all of the celebrities that come to mind,
Yeah.
are not outed as God-fearers. They either have no opinion or they release themselves as atheists.
All right, excuse my visual here. I got to turn my camera to get the focus to come back to normal. It likes to do this to me occasionally. So,
yeah.
I'll you tell me if it.
I thought you'd smeared Vaseline on the lens.
Right. Yeah, I think occasionally it picks up the microphone and focuses on it, and
yeah.
So I'll keep messing with it as you talk, and
okay,
we get it to come back.
So anyway, going back into my history while you're doing that, because this show is about you really, but since you're fiddling with your camera, I was recruited by Atheist Alliance International in 2017, I think it was, and I did 3 years as the publications director when I edited. Oh, nice and focused. When I edited Secular World, the quarterly journal, and the Insider monthly newsletter, and then I took over the YouTube channel and started learning how to make videos, and here we are. But I resigned at the beginning of this year to do my new project, FreeThought City. So, where do we go from here? What about the influence of religion on government? Because America is a bit of an outlier in the Western world. We're more secular, it seems, than you, even though officially we have an established church.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas you are constitutionally secular, but you have a lot of religious interference.
Yep.
What's your take on that?
It's, it was a good idea in theory, but the popularity of religion, in our past, I think is kind of baked into a lot of the things we do. We had in Kentucky, under our last governor, every school, public school, was ordered, I think I can say, to put "In God We Trust." Kind of. And then their idea was, a big banner as you walk into the building.
Yeah.
Well, in Fayette County, where Lexington is, our leadership decided to put a $1 bill in a frame in the front hall of the school, and it clearly says "In God We Trust" on the $1 bill.
In a sort of low key way of following the regulation.
Well,
of course, that phrase only got on the dollar bill in the 1950s anyway.
Right. To kind of scare away from communism, and it got added to our Pledge of Allegiance too.
Yes.
Yeah. So, it's unfortunate that I think too a lot of voters in United States, use kind of have a religion influenced tendency to vote too, where whether it's abortion or gay rights and things like that. So it's I look at other countries in envy with in that respect.
Yeah. Well, as I said, America's a bit of an outlier on that front, and it's an embarrassment to see from here that Trump, for example, can drum up support from the Baptist movement and the evangelicals, which is weird because he doesn't portray the image that you would expect them to go along with.
Right. Yeah. Going back to your statement about atheists being immoral, I can think of dozens of metrics, that Trump would fall pretty low on that scale.
Yes, indeed. Yes.
But yep, he said he can shoot someone on downtown New York and not pay a penalty for it. So
yes, he's so popular. Yes.
Yeah. Thou shalt not kill unless it's Trump. It's cool then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. So tell us about what you get up to in, well, maybe first of all, Digital FreeThought Radio Hour. I've been on that a couple of times, but you've been going for years now, haven't you?
Yeah.
And then maybe tell us a bit about your group, your real physical live group summit.
Yeah. So the radio show, Ty, as you mentioned, I'm honestly kind of filling in for him. To your listeners, definitely tune in when Ty's on. He is a very charismatic guy, and it'll be a good show. He was in Kentucky, and he came to a few of my summits before he said, "Hey guys, I'm moving to Knoxville," and he moved down to Knoxville and found the group there on Meetup. And meetup.com is a great resource for people to find similarly minded people in your area.
Definitely.
So he got in with this group, and Larry is the guy that's been doing this radio show for over 10 years.
Yeah. For the benefit of the listeners or watchers, Larry has this chocolate brown voice, which is perfect for radio.
Yeah, he really does. And so they have a whole bit and whole, setup, intro, outro, mid-show break. We usually have a topic. And you can go to digitalfreethoughtradiohour.com and listen to all the previous ones. We've since kind of moved over to YouTube on Ty's channel. And his channel's Let's Chat. All that's linked together in Digital FreeThought Radio Hour. But it's just it's my church. It's Sunday morning for me. I'm down here on the mic and just get a chance to pop in. My father-in-law joins a lot of them. I met a group of people. In fact, since Knoxville's pretty close to Lexington, several of us that are involved in Summit are going to hop in a car this summer and drive down there and meet these people in person.
Yeah.
And there's my camera again. But so I'm excited to now that we're vaccinated and kind of starting to lessen restrictions and different things. I'm gonna try this trick again. It's great. But yeah, my group Summit has been, well, let's see, we had a summit in February of 2020, and then we stopped for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
And then we waited until maybe the summer, and we had a few of them outside, and everyone was a little, unsure. We were socially distanced, and of course, nobody was vaccinated at that time. We try to keep the group small, but we only had a few, and it got hot, and so then we kind of shut it down until recently. We've started now that folks are vaccinated, we've started doing it again, and we're doing it by campfire, and we're a group where most of us are atheist, and if not 6.9s, they're 4s or 5s. We've got a dear friend of mine who's very religious Christian, but tough skin and quick-witted, and he comes and keeps us all on our toes, really. He gives us a totally different perspective, and he kind of comes from a more conservative side too. So we try not to dominate the conversation with politics, because let's face it, it's certainly not my expertise. I want to talk about free thought, and I want to talk about philosophy and science and how religion gets in there, and free will and all those kinds of things, and that's kind of where we dance around that. We talk around that stuff. We've had a lot of really hard free will conversations with some of our folks.
It's a difficult subject, isn't it?
It is, yeah. But an important one, I think.
Yeah. I'd have to study for an hour beforehand before I could have a conversation on it, I think.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I'm a bit of a Sam Harris fanboy, and I've listened to a lot of his talks on that. But Yeah, good group. And yeah.
And you're also a bit of a musician, we were saying. So tell us about that. What's your instruments and what do you play? What style?
Yeah, so that bass just happened to be caught on camera. I didn't position it perfectly to show it or anything. No, I've been playing music a long time since probably, well, I moved to Kentucky in the early '90s, and I picked up bass shortly before we left there. And I play bass for the most part. I play drums kind of is my kind of fun, like, distraction instrument. I'll play guitar and sing when people make me, but bass is probably my main instrument. And I've done original bands here in Lexington, and they're tough because it's hard to get people to come out to listen to new music, especially if we're playing like 17-minute improv jam songs with no vocals. But it was fun. It was challenging. It's great. But so I kind of jumped on the tribute bandwagon, I guess. And a band I'm in, we cover Tool, kind of a heavy rock band. And those shows are great because people come to hear Tool and
they get you, which is
they get us.
Tool light.
Yes. But then recently, I've joined some friends playing Tragic Kingdom is our mostly what we play. Or I'm sorry, No Doubt. The band's Tragic Kingdom. So it's Gwen Stefani's band from the ska band, and then we'll play Alanis Morissette, and we'll play all the '90s stuff that the guy cover bands aren't playing because they can't hit the high notes. So we're doing those because our singer's awesome at that. And yeah, so we'll do Nora Jones and Amy Winehouse, and so it's a big mix of other stuff. But yeah, so I love it. I get to do different things in Tool and Tragic Kingdom, very different sides. So yeah,
it's surprising how many atheists, freethinkers, agnostics, call them what you like, are also musical or in some way entertaining. I think the two seems to go together. I don't know why this is, but I've noticed that most celebrities, especially comedians, for example, are atheists. I know of one conservative comedian, and he's not very funny.
This is your show, but can I ask the question then on that? Do you find that when you find out a celebrity is atheist, or the opposite, if you find out they're very, very religious, does that change your interest in that celebrity or interest in the movie that they're in or anything like that? Do you ever find that?
No, not particularly. No, I just like people, Doesn't matter to me what's inside their heads particularly, as long as they're not being hateful towards me,
Sure.
Obviously. But no, I'm, as I said, coming from the point of view of a teacher, my whole mission is to bond people together and help them to achieve the best they can of themselves. And if that means that they are going down the religious path, that's fine. And of course, when I was in a school, a lot of my colleagues were in the RE department, and so we had fun together, So there you go.
I find, and it's something I pay attention to now because I don't think it's fair, but I do find that, if I find out someone is atheist, instantly there's a kinship, and it's like, I smile.
Yes.
I find out if someone is very religious, instantly it's kind of like, oh, okay. And I'll admit that anyone I've met and I know, and then I find out, and that's maybe a little bit back to your point about coming out as an atheist. I usually try to hold off on that. I don't want that to be someone's first impression of me. But I have dear friends that I find out years later they are very, very religious, and that doesn't change a thing. Once I know the person, but I'll see the celebrity is atheist and go, man, I'm going to check out their movies, or comedians especially. especially, the David Crosses, the Patton Oswalt, and I just enjoy their comedy more because that's usually a part of their topic, right?
Yes.
I enjoy, Bill Hicks,
Mm,
comedy bit on religion. He just,
mm.
great stuff. But yeah, it's something I try to check myself on. I shouldn't judge people based on it. And now that I'm kind of aware of it, I think I can handle it better. But yeah, just me admitting my flaw there.
Okay. So very open of you. But it shouldn't matter, should it? Because
No.
what they do in their profession shouldn't really be influenced by what they do on a Sunday, for
Right.
example.
Yeah.
I mean, you wouldn't think that an accountant was any worse at his job for being either an atheist or a theist. As long as he does the numbers okay, that's fine.
Right.
Yeah.
But what about a microbiologist?
Well, I know some of those. In fact, I've interviewed on this show. Was it on this show? It was on my Skeptics in the Hub show, I think. But I had as a guest Dr. Zachary Ardern, who is a New Zealander who I know. I met him in New Zealand when I was visiting my son and his family down there. Is it okay to say down for New Zealand?
I think it's fair. Yeah.
And Zachary and I have had more than one encounter in the flesh, debating each other on the subject of religion of various sorts, why we believe or why we don't believe. And he's been on my online show as well. And he's an interesting guy. I can't understand how his head works, but he's good to talk to and try to analyze, because he's there with his PhD even. He's come up through the science ladder, and he's got this PhD in some sort of microbiology. I think it's genetical. I forget what it's called, but it's a specialism. And he's recently got a new job, because he's been working in Germany, but he's now got a job in the UK. I forget where, but we keep in touch, and he lets me know what he's doing. So, but it's interesting because the way he manages, I don't know whether he's got two compartments in his brain, but somehow he manages to cling on to what it was. It wasn't the way he was brought up in his case, because I don't think his father's that religious. Anyway, there's no reason why it should stop us conversing.
Oh yeah, certainly.
It's people are people, and we've got to tolerate all sorts of different types. It really shouldn't come into a normal conversation when you're talking about whatever, business or the weather or some other sport or some other topic. That what you believe about God is not really part of the conversation, is it?
Right. And I think, and not to dive too much into the scary topic of free will, but belief itself isn't really something you control, right? I mean, you're not compelling yourself to think one way or another. It's belief in just general. It's how you land on that, on whatever topic we're talking about. And so I don't think you really author that that choice. You're not really making the decision. It's just, I can't. People love to say that atheists should use Pascal's wager to decide if they should be an atheist, and it doesn't make any sense to me, because if I'm just doing math and saying, well, I'm better off believing and having nothing happen than not believing and having hell happen. Belief doesn't work that way. I can't use a wager to say, well, I guess I'll believe. It's like, I guess I don't believe. So I don't typically hold it against.
Toss this coin.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I'm a Christian.
Yeah, there you go. It's
yeah. No, that doesn't make sense. So, you mentioned street epistemology. I can't remember whether that was during the show or before, but do you do it yourself?
I don't. I learned about it through Ty, and seen several of his videos on Let's Chat, where he does it very, very well. And he's pointed to me some of the leaders in that field. Dread Pirate that you mentioned, hopefully will join your show. He does a bit of it. I mean, it's all been kind of on hiatus, which I suspect it's coming back this summer. In terms of you set up a booth, if your viewers don't know, you set up a booth and you ask someone to swing by, and you know, they walk by and say, hey, let's talk about something you feel strongly about. And there's a nice little toolkit that street epistemologists use, and I'm no expert here, but basically it's a way of interacting with someone that maybe you disagree with, to get them to kind of rethink.
Yes.
Or to think about, maybe not rethink, but just think about.
Yes. The Socratic method.
Yes.
Trying to get people to examine their own thoughts and feelings without arguing with them, without getting into a conflict.
Right.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm kind of, I guess, I don't know, amateur hour SE person, because I like to pepper it into Summit. Summit doesn't work. Ty tried to use it at Summit once, and because we're just a very round table open format, it doesn't really work. It's more for one-on-one, I think. And so I like to kind of pepper the thoughts in, but I will say I've had a lot of opportunity lately talking about vaccinations, and not even just coronavirus, but also, you know, getting a flu shot and things like that. I've used things I've picked up from these guys to talk to, you know, the people that are hesitant to get the vaccine. And, you know, a lot of times, you know, we'll talk about it, and, you know, they'll microchips or infertility, and then we'll kind of just talk it through and be like, well, I mean, you ever seen a microchip that tiny? And do you have any idea what kind of a battery it would have? And I mean, how long would it last? And have you seen the tip of the needle before? But then it'll go to things where it's like, well, you're asking me my opinion on whether or not you should vaccinate your kids. Talk to your pediatrician. Like, do you think that's the person that, you know? So I don't know. I've tried to work in some of that into those harder conversations.
Here's somebody who agrees with you about feeling biased against religious people. They've found us on Facebook, so they have put their name in. Okay.
No, it's a real thing. I certainly enjoy it when it comes to celebrities, and I found out they're atheists. I mean, I instantly want to go see their movies, and I think that's a pretty, I don't know, innocent way to find new, you know, enjoy new celebrities. So I try to push against the opposite. I don't want to not watch a Tom Cruise movie because of Scientology. I mean, it doesn't change his acting, right?
No.
So that doesn't bother me. I'll go see the whatever Tom Cruise movie. So I try not to do it in a bad way, but I certainly find, I mean, there are fantastic comedians and actors out there that are openly atheist, and I think that's a good thing.
George Carlin.
Ah, yes. Buddy Christ. If you've seen Dogma.
Yeah.
Yep.
Those are some great guys. So what do you think? How's the world going right now? Let's put the world to rights. Is it getting more religious or less religious?
I think less religious for sure. At least in the Western world, at least in the United States. I know I've seen. Now, of course, you never know how some of these studies are conducted and sample sizes and that kind of thing. But what I've seen over the year, religiosity is going down pretty starkly. And I definitely will echo one of the American atheist presidents recently I'm sorry?
Nick Fish.
This was a few years ago. David Silverman, was he?
He was historically.
Okay. Yeah, someone can fact check me on that, but I believe he spoke at the Reason Rally in D.C. A few years ago, and one of the things he made a really good point about, and I think it gets to what you're saying is, I think we are less religious, but we're so scattered. You know, like you said, some people are spiritual, some people are secular, some people are atheist, agnostic. We can get into that whole confusion too, but or people that are just free thinkers, or and then you can even, other groups, kind of can tie into some of the atheist movements, whether it's homosexual, or someone who kind of encounters similar barriers to coming out and things. So we don't unite under one group, whereas a Christian can, or even a Baptist, and it can all kind of fit in one checkbox on a demographic form. We don't have that luxury. We need that term that will unite us all, and it'll give us a lot more political power.
Yeah. Well, I don't think they have that luxury either, really, because how many different denominations of Christianity are there? 3,000?
Yeah. But they're on 3,000 checkboxes on a form, right? Yes. So they can rally under Christianity, Muslim, Jewish, Buddhist, those are right. They're kind of your major, and even then, just even believers in general, I think, can all kind of rally under the same cry.
Yeah. But form a lobby group. Yes.
Yeah. But it's much harder for us, spread out over.
Well, that's right. We don't have a hierarchical structure. We don't have a leadership.
No.
We don't have a common set of doctrine.
Right.
We're just individuals who have got our own decision-making process. Yep. It's in here.
Yep.
And we have no reason to follow each other's scripture, whatever that is. Yeah. So it is a problem. Yeah. So I'm going to crack open a beer here. I'm getting thirsty, all this talking.
Good for you. But yeah.
I see what you're saying, that in America it's becoming more secular, less religious. All the polls show a big increase in nuns over the past maybe 7 decades. If you look at going back to when polling began, and at that time, everybody proclaimed that they were 70% of the population proclaimed that they were religious. And now it's the other way around. It's 30% they proclaim they're religious. And if you sample the younger generations, it's even less.
Yeah.
And in this country, we have a different sort of situation, because although we are more secular in practice, we still have come out of, well, the thing about Anglicanism is it's very much Christianity light. We don't have to believe anything to belong to it. So it's been a harmless religion that people have been happy to say they are. I'm an Anglican, because it's so meaningless. They might as well be saying, I'm an agnostic or an atheist.
Yeah.
But even given that, the polls here have been going up. So the last time people were surveyed, we were 51% non-believers, positive non-believers, not wishy-washy. People still wearing the Christian hat, even though they don't go to church.
Right.
But actual people who've chosen to identify as non-believers. And we've just had a census in which people were required to tick a box according to what their worldview or belief system was. And the results aren't out yet, but it'll be interesting to see. But other parts of the world, they've got a problem. Because the show before this that I do every week is called Global Atheist News. And it's a 20-minute review of the way religion has impacted humanity over the previous 7 days. And if anybody's watching would like to see that, it's available on my FreeThought Productions channel. But every week, usually, I get to report on some atrocity that's gone on in Pakistan, another atrocity that's gone on in Nigeria, and other, endemically religious, rabidly religious countries where, you can be executed for adultery, but only if you're a woman.
Mm-hmm.
So in those sorts of parts of the world, things are not getting any better. Not noticeably. So, do you have any reasons to be cheerful?
Fair point. Yeah. Well, and I think that's been one of the big pushes from CFI, Center for Inquiry, to get some of the books that have been written translated into different languages and get them to and that's it's important. And I it seems like there's been a big movement with the internet has enabled a lot of folks in those countries to be able to get access to content or share, again, get out, escape, and keep their heads attached to their bodies.
Yes.
That's
I think Dawkins has just released all of his books as a PDF, free in, is it Arabic?
Arabic, that sounds right.
Certainly one of those languages where it's desperately needed, because they're in theocratic countries controlled by the religious.
I'd love to know how the translating goes and how much of the message is affected, because that's got to be, he covers some pretty complex things, and
yes.
And, I suppose they're better than nothing, but I bet it's not the
no.
Dawkins is just a wonderful wordsmith.
He is indeed. Yeah. I know what you're saying. It's because I don't think this is an exaggeration, most of scientific literature is in English. Obviously, there's some in German and some in French and some in Spanish, but I think some in Japanese too, probably Chinese, Mandarin as well. But I think the major way we communicate worldwide is using the English language. And that may not interpret into Arabic very well. I don't know how well the language of Arabic is suited to the sort of expression that you need to be able to have access to get science across. I'm completely ignorant about that as a problem, but it certainly needs tackling.
Certainly understandable too that at the international level, science and the peer review process, you really do need to all kind of pick one language to all kind of agree to. And English is the center point for that. It makes sense. That's an efficient way to do it. But I suspect you're right that there are some things that are probably really hard to get across.
Yeah, the whole point about language is to communicate, and if we have different languages, that's a barrier. And of course, the French hate it that English is the lingua franca.
Oh, is it? Yeah,
that's an expression, isn't it? The lingua franca it dates back in history to when the royals all spoke French because of the Norman invasion, and so people in this country spoke some guttural tongue that wasn't as posh as what the nobility spoke. So everybody aspired to the lingua franca as the top dog. And of course, now it's the other way around.
Yep. Well.
So there you go. Right. Israel. Do you want to skate on that thin ice?
We certainly can. I think this is where conversation is needed. I think this is also where there are toxic conversations out there that there are landmines in these conversations and these topics that scare people to talk about it, which doesn't help anybody. You gotta you've got to have the ability to have a conversation. Trevor Noah, I'm sure you're familiar with, did a short little thing on this Israeli and the Gaza recent events, and was so very careful over and over. Look, I'm not making declarative statements here. I'm not comparing the Palestinians to my younger brother. Just constantly saying things like we need to just talk about it. We need to think about this. And, he kind of equated it to a power. It's a power issue. One side has power.
The other side doesn't. Yeah, that's pretty obvious. Yeah.
But
you can't ignore those facts. You don't have to side with one or the other. They are just facts. Yeah.
One side is pestering the other side. Sure. And constant tenacious pestering is not nothing. So, but yeah, the whole thing, we really just need to be able to talk about it without.
What I would like to see, now this is my dream, is a reset day. Where the whole world presses the reset button, forgets all the grievances that they've had in the past, starts again. Treating people like individuals.
The Hatfields and McCoy is the Kentucky thing, I believe, is the history there. But you had the two feuding families.
Yes.
And probably didn't even remember why they were feuding.
No. It's like Romeo and Juliet from the what were they? I can't remember.
Now that you said it, the Montagues and the.
That's it. Yeah.
Well, we'll get.
Too much beer.
Everyone on Facebook is now making fun of us. For not
yes.
I haven't thought about those names in a long time.
So Gordon Campbell.
Yes,
it's Kentucky. Gordon, thanks for watching. Gordon's a friend of mine in Canada who's been on the show before. Hope things are all right with you, Gordon. Tennessee is another of the Bible Belt states, as is Alabama, and which takes me back. Oh, look, Capulets and Montagues. Thanks, Gordon.
Yeah, you said close to Capulets, and it threw me off.
I was halfway there. So you've got Alabama, Kentucky, Tennessee, I suppose a bit of North Carolina, the part of the Bible Belt there. And including even Texas, I suppose. Yeah. But thinking of Alabama brings me back to music.
Sweet Home?
Sweet Home, the big hit. Yeah. Massive hit.
Yeah. No, it's actually interesting, the states you're listing off. If you've seen a map of kind of the vaccination rollouts or the vaccination acceptance or the coronavirus, impact. Kentucky is kind of on the north piece of that, but they're still pretty southern, pretty conservative. But Kentucky has actually really stood out from those other states in what we've been doing. And I think mostly because of our governor, who would have been a Republican governor. We would have had a Republican governor if our previous governor hadn't upset all of our teachers. But point being is Alabama, Texas, a lot of these states were really struggling for a long time and maybe are struggling with, vaccinations, but I think all that's turning corners now. I don't know what it's like in your part of the world, but we're getting to the point. Yeah.
Well, we're steeped in history here, and it's taken a long while to shake off some of the very old acts that are still on the book from hundreds of years ago, quite silly things. We've only just repealed the blasphemy law this century in the 2000s.
Wow.
Believe it. Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? And you mentioned governors, and that makes me think of the governor of Texas, who has just this week, he's signed a bill. No, I think it's an act now because he signed it, and he is the ultimate authority in Texas, to enable anybody to sue any person who's involved in abortion if a heartbeat has been detected.
Oh.
Now, you can detect an embryonic heartbeat before the embryo has a heart.
Mm-hmm.
You can detect an electrical regular pulse. 6 weeks, that's detectable.
Mm.
So effectively, he's banning abortion because a lot of women don't know they're pregnant
Sure.
at 6 weeks.
Yeah.
So he's banning abortion by the back door, which of course is not legal at federal level
Mm-hmm.
because of Roe versus Wade. And he's opening it so that it doesn't have to be enforced by the state agents. Any Tom, Dick, or Harry, not even necessarily a Texan, can take a legal action against anyone who's in any way involved in an abortion. So that could be the doctor that performed the abortion, that could be the woman that had the abortion, that could be her dad who paid for the abortion, that could be the taxi driver who took her to the abortion clinic. It could be anyone, and they can be fined, if they lose this case, $10,000. So what he's hoping to do is block up all the courts with lots of these lawsuits against all these innocent people and effectively prevent abortion taking place in Texas. How about that? That's some devious thinking, isn't it?
Yeah. And are they not going to just drive across the state line anyway?
Of course. Yes.
Yeah. It's a big state, so.
Yeah, yeah. Which is something that used to happen here, because for a long time we had access to abortions under conditions. You know, I think it's 23 weeks, but Northern Ireland didn't. So all the girls who got knocked up in Northern Ireland got on the ferry and came to England and got aborted. Yeah. So, do you think we can put the world to rights at all?
I mean, one podcast at a time, I guess.
Yeah, I keep telling my children it's their job. I'm too old.
Right.
They've got to do it.
I see your friend's comment. I do like the atheist experience. I've met Matt Dillahunty. He actually taught my daughter a card trick.
Oh, right.
He came to Louisville for FreeThought.
He's a keen conjurer, isn't he?
Yeah. But I enjoy that. I enjoy that show.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, me too. I've listened to it as well.
Yeah.
Anyway, Eric, you won't believe this, but we've done an hour, all but about a minute and a half.
Wow.
So I'm going to, first of all, I'm going to try and flag up what's happening next week, because it's not going to be easy because I don't know. I've got several potential guests buzzing around, but I haven't actually netted them yet. But I will have somebody to come on the show next week at the same time, at the same place. So please view us, and it might be somebody else from Digital Freethought Radio Hour in Knoxville. We never know. Watch this space. So thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for taking part, Eric. You've been fantastic.
My pleasure. I really enjoyed it, and I hope to watch future ones.
Great. Yeah, well, there's an archive of them now going back. Okay, so I'm going to play your outro, and maybe I'll have a little chat with you later.
Sounds good. Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.